But I think sexuality in itself should be a discussion in the churches. Without getting into details, even sexuality between married people, for example, it's like when you say sex, it's if you're a male or female sex, but sex in the intimacy of sexual of sex is a subject that's a little like, oh, that's so disrespectful. When it's everywhere, every channel you turn on, even on the street corners, you know, it's everywhere. You know?
Hi, welcome everyone to a live episode of My Comfy Couch today. If you guys remember, on the couch I have with me Juju. Say hi, Juju. Yes, Juju is joining us today, and we have a special guest with us today as well. We have Bishop Reimer with us, comes with Twigs Ministry. Say hi, Pastor, or Bishop, sorry, Bishop Reimer. Can you unmute? Yes. Can you
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, thank you for being with us. Okay, so this conversation is about, as you guys saw the topic, about undercover homosexuality in the church, right? So we know that that's a topic that the church normally shies away from, right? And but as you see with the whole LGBT movement that's really on a rise, it's something that the church really can't ignore discussing anymore. So I brought Juju here to speak with us, and I invited some other church leaders so we can have an open discussion. So we're going to start off with Juju. Juju, let us know kind of what was your upbringing like? Did you grow up in the church? What was your experience?
Yes, I actually grew up in a very cultured and religious, or I should say spiritual background. You know, my grandfather was an elder. You know, my grandmother, she's first lady. My mom, she definitely dressed us up every Saturday faithfully. We went to church, you know, and being cultured, you know, just she was very Caribbean. Yeah, so I would say yes. So, you know, we had a lot of strict rules, you know, things were very structured. And what else? Yeah, I'll say that.
Okay,
for the most part.
Okay, so for most of your life, your family was in the church. You grew up going to the church.
Yeah.
Church was a big part of your life.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now the question is, when did you kind of start identifying as being gay, or started having, you know, those types of feelings? When did that happen? How old were you?
I would say I was about 17, maybe.
Oh, okay, 17.
Yeah, I was 17. And it was just really thoughts. I don't think I literally identified. Okay. But it was more so the thoughts, the battle, the understanding of trying to understand what was happening, you know.
And so was there anyone that you could talk to when you felt that way? Was there anybody in the church you felt like you could confide in?
Oh no.
Oh no.
No, sorry, Bob. And you know, and I would say it stemmed from the fact of growing up in the church, you know, and also with my cultured family. I would never have thought, or I wouldn't even fathom the thought to say, hey, mommy, or anybody, you know, especially in the church too, whether an elder or any minister leader, I would not say I would actually let those words release from my lips.
So you have the issue both with the religious aspect and the Caribbean.
Yeah.
As you guys know, the Caribbean, so that's a big issue, right? Being accepted in the Caribbean. So then who did you turn to? Like, who did you talk to?
I spoke to friends, maybe.
In friends?
I spoke to friends. There were maybe one or two people that I would speak to in the family, maybe. Okay. But even then, it was a matter of frets, or like, you know, like, okay, can they keep this secret? Or am I able to freely express myself to them and I not be judged?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now tell me, at what point did, you know, the shit hit the fan, as they say? Like, when did it all come out that you were gay?
I would say when I turned maybe 18. Okay. Around 18. Yeah, that was a story within itself. But yeah, my mother, she overheard a conversation on the phone, and that's when it was just like, boof, there it is.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, but and I could understand, she didn't take it well,
Mhm.
but after years upon years, we worked through it.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So tell me, so your mom found out what was, of course, she didn't take it well, like you said.
No.
So I'm guessing eventually the church found out as well.
Yes, the church found out as well. They didn't take it well either, but I think for them, again, it's new.
Right, right,
You
right.
know, the church, from my perspective, especially dealing with them, it's something that they literally shy away from, as you said.
Yes.
So if they shy away from it, they act like it doesn't happen, and it's just like, well, you're talking about one person out of the 100 people I have here. Okay, yeah, it was that type of thing.
Okay, so did anyone reach out to you? Did anyone say, hey, I heard this, as a church leader or someone in the church, reached out to you to try to speak with you about what was going on?
No, not
No one?
technically. Not technically. As it became an uproar, as it became more of like from a rumor to now it's like, oh wait, I really heard this. And for me too, I was just like, why do you really want to know?
Okay, so when they would call it ask.
Yeah, or if I saw them, oh, I heard this and I heard that, and I want to know if that's true. And it's like, for what? you know, More so because at that time too, it's like, what are your intentions? What is this really all about? Do you just want to know, or is it a fact of you want to help me?
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So
So you
yeah.
felt like most people are coming at you just trying to get
Information in a sense,
information.
yeah, like, okay, so now wherever you go with it or whatever you do with it, it's just like, now it's the dining room table, or at the dining room table talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my struggle, I would say.
So were you embarrassed or afraid, to go back to church again after it came out? Did you feel any kind of way?
Yes, I actually stopped going to church. If people did see me, it was more for like just to see the certain people I still would engage with.
Hmm.
You know, I could remember when I actually was gone too from my mother's house at that. So I would be everywhere, you know. But I was, I did have a sense of embarrassment within myself, and I didn't feel secure in releasing that type of information, because at that time my mind was everywhere. You know, I myself didn't know how to process things. I didn't know what was really happening to me. Um, and that was really, big for me. That was the struggle.
I'm sure. So you have that kind of internal battle and the battle with the church people, the battle with your family.
Yeah.
So that must have been like so much going on with you at that time. I want to welcome Pastor Ezra. I believe you joined us in. Welcome to the discussion. Thank you for joining us as well. Um, so okay, so you said you came out. It was like a huge uproar.
Mhm.
So the people that did reach out or that you eventually spoke to in
Mhm.
church, like, did they give you any kind of, feedback, any support? What is it they kind of did to kind of help you? Did they offer anything?
I would say yes, but I had to go through a hurdle of people to really find their intentions. And I would say my uncle church in South Miami, he did a pretty good job in trying to coordinate, trying to alleviate
Mhm,
some of the stresses on either side.
mhm.
And I think he did a pretty good job, but of course you cannot please everybody.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly,
And a
exactly.
lot of us, and that was another problem, me trying to please everybody,
Mhm.
and I think that's why a lot of us, we have issues too, because it's like, okay, is Tom gonna be okay with this? Is Sue gonna be okay? But then if Tom is not okay, then I have to make sure, so it's like you go have a back and forth battle. But I would say South Miami. My aunt too, from Twigs Ministries. You know, we've had good conversations, and she's also an awesome speaker. But they actually both are, and that's why I also enjoy speaking with them more so.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a little biased, but I don't know if there's a little biasness there because it's me or with their my uncle or my aunt, but you know, I would say that I did get some pretty good feedback. Things obviously it's not always gonna blow over or be a smooth sail, but I would say they're the ones that the most I've gotten a good feedback or good conversation per se as somebody as an authority in the church.
Okay. And again, I want to give a shout out to Pastor Ezra. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. You want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So
Thank you
Juju.
for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So Juju, tell me, for someone in the future, right?
Mhm.
Because you know, as we said, the LGBT community is really on the rise. If there are other, you know, guys or females in the church that are feeling like you did, you know, what would you like to say to church leaders on, you know, some things that they can do to kind of support you or make it, you know, a kind of way where there's a communication there or a dialogue? What could they have done, do you think, would have made it a bit, you know, easier for you?
Um, I really don't think the initial stages of it, I don't think there's anything that they could do because the first thing you have to do is obviously you have to say it or speak it in a sense. So I would have to come to a leader and say, hey, this is what it is. But after you patch that initial step, it's like, um, it's all about the conversation. It's all about the welcoming, you know. I find that a lot of leaders, especially on our Caribbean side, and even some American, you know, leaders that I've spoken to, it's so easy to beat you with the Bible. You know what I mean? It's so easy to say that, oh, it's a sin and you this and you're bound to go to hell and all this great stuff that you could say, okay, sure. But it's all about the conversation. It's all about how you lead them. You can lead them in a way of understanding before you bring out the belt, you know? Or even if you want to beat me at the same time, you know, when you're younger, it's like, I beating you because you don't want to listen, you know? But even if you do that at the same time, you know, for some people, that might seem okay, but it's all more, I think it's all more about the conversation, how you approach things, where you go with it. And obviously that individual is in a sensitive and feeble state.
Right.
So it's always like, you know, some people could take things so left, but I really just think it's setting the stage, understanding the conversation at hand, and really executing in a proper manner versus just ready to feed to the wolves, you know?
Yes, I understand. So I want to hear from you, church leaders on the line. As we said, you know, the whole movement of the LGBT community, like, are you all, you know, prepared? Do you feel like your church is prepared to handle this? And what do you have to offer, or have you thought about what you have to offer people who are in Juju's situation?
Well, I think one of the things that could possibly, if someone is feeling that way, to speak to someone about it. Of course, whether it be pastors or lay person, you're not sure who to talk to, and that's a reality. You know, not every pastor will condone not even the hint of the conversation. You know, they wouldn't even want to get into it much. Um, However, you know, that individual must find someone to trust to be able to talk to them, someone that will hear them first before condemning or, you know, supporting. You know, so I think I would suggest that they find someone to talk to. Somehow it needs to get to professional assistance. You know, where, you know, that individual needs to be able to receive some type of counseling. um, and but the route to just rise up and find someone to talk to, especially based on what I hear, Juju saying. Did I pronounce that correctly, Juju?
Yeah, you're fine to call me Julian.
It depends on your background, your culture, and where you're from. Like you mentioned, the Caribbean. It could have been somewhere else. It may not be an easy rise for someone to rise and say, "Listen, Pastor, I have an issue. I have a default, some kind of issue here with my sexuality." So those are not subjects that are easily spoken of and could easily just people feel free to talk about in some cultures. But it can be difficult to find someone. But I would urge that person to find somebody to talk to, and that could lead them to the right direction for receiving counseling with if it's at an early stage, it's even great. If it's at a later stage, then of course the course could be very much challenging. So that's based on what you asked me here. That's my response to that.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Getting it early on, perhaps if as soon as you felt that way, you found someone you felt comfortable talking with, then maybe they could have, steered you or encouraged you in a certain path. How about you, Bishop Reimer? Did you have anything to add on how the church could, be of assistance or support in this manner?
Yes, Pastor Reimer. Bishop is on the other side of the fence.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor Reimer. I'm sorry, Pastor, I'm sorry.
The bishop over there. And so your question is, how should the person approach us?
Yeah, so if someone was feeling like Juju was feeling, what could the church do, or how could the church, be there and support him in what he's going through?
Well, decide I want to dock him in a pool and get him sanctified. That's me and Juju's conversation. Juju and I relate to that. But I am in a position where, on a serious note, that it's like with any other thing or circumstance or situation a person has found themselves in, that they should be able to find that, that comfort zone to be able to express themselves. Homosexuality is no different from any other situation. And so if a person, and I'm just using that as an example, if I have somebody in the church who's married and having an adulterous affair, how would I treat that person? And so my doors must be open, because I always believe that the church is a hospital for sinners. And I'm not I'm just making a general statement. So a hospital that has the sick goes there. So I believe no matter what the person's situation is, there should be an open door so that person is comfortable to talk, to relate. And I'm totally in agreement with Pastor Ezra in saying that we should hear them out. And one of the things I have come to understand and realize that there's some issues that are deeply rooted. So hearing the person out without the judgment at the beginning. I mean, there should never be judgment, but you know what I'm saying? Without the initial judgment at the onset. And understanding, okay, and so you feel that, and being a counselor myself and understanding, trauma and things like that, if you get the person to talk and understand where did it come from, not judging like, when did this start? Not the question like how long you've been feeling that way exactly, but really giving that ear to hear that person out enough for them to be able to open up. Because if you do that, you give them the opportunity to really express, even the things that they would not answer if you ask a direct question. So I believe having that open door and treating it as you would the person who come and confess a murder, the person who come and confess stealing, the person who come and share anything. And so even suicidal thoughts. So hearing a person out without telling them you can't go kill yourself and you shouldn't do this, is not giving them an opportunity, because that can close them up.
I agree. The church should be available. Pastors should be open and available to be able to direct, because not every pastor, all pastors are counselors of every cases, of every situation. And pastors are there to direct, okay, I think you need to see this person, you need to see that person. Oh, I can help you with this. Pastors needs to understand as well that if you don't have that full qualification to deal with certain counseling, you need to be able to have referrals to refer them to. And that's what I think the church should do.
Wow, I'm loving the responses. It seems like you both are on the same page in terms of counseling, finding someone that you can talk to and trust, leaders not being judgmental. And I also want to throw in there might be some training that church leaders need to undergo in terms of understanding where homosexuality kind of begins, kind of how that person is feeling, what their lifestyle is like. Like, I believe that there probably is some additional training that has to go on where the church leaders can really understand this whole side of life, because this is something totally different that we're dealing with now. And it takes some context, I think, as I believe Pastor was alluding to, Pastor Ezra, to be able to deal with this type of topic. And I know when I was speaking with Juju a time back, you said, like, a lot of times, people in the church just want to say, oh, just pray about it. I'll pray about it. I'll pray,
I hate it. But let me not say hate. Hate is a strong word, but I really sometimes dislike that answer, because it's so, what's the word I could use? It's so basic, and it's just like when you're having a discussion, and I've been in church with this discussion, and there's people who be like, when you ask them a question and they don't have an answer, they'll be like, well, it was supposed to be so because God said. But it's just like, I get it. God did say it. It was supposed to be so, but why? Or let's expound on bringing in an understanding. Let's put some knowledge in there instead of just saying, well, God said it. What do you want me to do? God said not to lie. So I'm not lying because God said it. Why did God say it? Where did it derive from? And that's the conversation, or that's like what I dislike about it, is just a lot of people just, oh, pray about it, brothers. Pray. Yeah, I can pray, but there's more to it, and the Bible does say, pray without works is dead. And I feel like on either side, it's dead, because I feel like some people, when they pray, it's like they just praying to get it over with. So it's like, in the senses of, the homosexuality, it's like, okay, let me just pray for that brother because that's my duty. Versus there's actually something there. There's an effort, there's a zest, there's a zeal to actually see me through.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bigger underlying issue there of just the church staying abreast on the issues that young people are dealing with overall. Like, times are changing. Not only is it homosexuality, it's sexuality, period.
Yeah.
People are having sex, and not commitment. Just this sex is just a big issue. And I think as times change, the church does have to try to make an effort to evolve to address the issues that kids are having now. So I think even having a little ministry or some kind of support group for all types of sexual issues going on, because we wilding right now, okay? I think something like that would be helpful. Yeah. Are you, as leaders, concerned about, kind of the path of the young kids nowadays, and kind of balancing not only spirituality, because I feel like the church has always got us in terms of spirit, but you kind of lose some of the young people, because although we are, in the world, we're not of the world, but we're in the world. And, what do you guys as leaders feel about kind of staying abreast on the issues that the young people are dealing with nowadays?
Well, I'd like to first let you all know that it's not a young people issue.
Okay.
Because adults go through the sexual thing too. So, and the reason why I brought that, I'm responding that way, is because it's not just a young people issue. We have married people who have sexual problems. We have single people who have sexual people. We have in the 70s and 80s that still have sexual issues. So to answer that question, that's why I said it's not a young people. So I would not recommend a young people's department. Of course, like any other meetings, maybe you would have age groups. But I think sexuality in itself should be a discussion in the churches. Without getting into details, even sexuality between married people, for example. It's like when you say sex, it's if you're a male or female sex, but sex in the intimacy of sexual of sex is a subject that's a little like, oh, that's so disrespectful. When it's everywhere, every channel you turn on, even on the street corners, it's everywhere. People are not ashamed to express themselves sexually. And so to answer the question, if that should be a department, I would say it should be one of the areas that is addressed, because a lot of, besides money and other issues, sexual problems are the root cause of marriages, the teens and youth. And then in that, we can also include the molestations, the rape, the pornography, sexual. So I think that should be a whole conversation. And then in there, because if you just say, let's talk about homosexuality or let's talk about this, it's just like limiting it to that. So if you have an open, I don't want to say a curriculum or agenda or discussion, that it should be a part of, your discussions in church, your open, keep it real sessions, your once a month, or because sometimes we do the marriage conversations, we do the marriage counseling, we do the, husband and wife come together, and we like the sexual thing you said, adults suffer with it too. Adults are raped, adults are involved in very secret sins, sexual immorality. And so it should not just be a conversation for the youth. And I understand where you were coming from, but I wanted it to be a broader spec. Now, if we have this discussion in the church, it should not just be a youth department thing, because it's broad. It's broader than just limited to that 18-year-old or that 17-year-old, like when Juju was having those thoughts. We have those little ones who see stuff that their parents are doing, and they're left, to experiment. So it should be, like whatever age group, it should just be sexual things, sex as a subject in its entirety.
Oh, I love what you said. I think it's as societal norms change. Yes, we need to stay abreast. I agree. It's all across the board. How about you, Pastor Angela? Did you want to chime in at all?
She took it all. She took it all, man. Sounds great. Sounds great. It is a prayer that God raise more people, to be available to head those departments. Pastors can't do everything. So I think there's also a calling that needs that is there, so that those who have gone through and have overcome these sexualities and in whatever area, there is a calling that God is calling, because they have the testimony, they have what it took for them to go through, suffer through it, and overcome at the end. So there's a calling to be answered by those who has been delivered, and perhaps those who have probably still going through. God could still use them during, and that's my opinion. So that's what I'd like to add to that.